我们到底要如何知道对方在用 sarcasm 开玩笑呢？那了解 sarcasm 跟使用的方式，会让我们在这种语言的运用上更顺手，也会让自己更有自信的跟国外的同事聊天。那今天就让我跟 Nick the sarcasm master 来教大家听出讽刺跟使用方法哦。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Now, word on the street is that I'm a very sarcastic person, and I don't know where this came from.
Really? I have no idea.
No clue.
No clue. And by the way, that's sarcasm.
So sarcasm is something that you've probably heard us talk quite a bit about. If you're a fan of the Big Bang Theory, this is a huge topic because Penny and Leonard are incredibly sarcastic, and Sheldon doesn't understand sarcasm at all.
Yeah.
So he constantly has to ask, like, was that sarcasm? No. Was that sarcasm?
Yeah, 我还记得他们要有一个 sign, right?
Yeah.
Sarcasm, just hold up the sign for each other. Yeah.
But sarcasm, I feel, is something that is very often tied to American and British humor.
British, I think, especially.
Especially like dry wit is the hallmark of British humor. And so in these cultures, you get a lot of people who are very sarcastic. Sometimes it's to a degree where it's very obvious. And in my case, I'll make statements that are dripping with sarcasm.
Dripping with sarcasm.
Whereas when you have very dry wit, for example, British sarcasm, occasionally the statements that they make, unless you think about it, it'll completely miss. So if anyone has watched, for example, Monty Python, literally anything from the Flying Circus TV show or their more famous movies like The Life of Brian and Search for the Holy Grail, these are all incredibly sarcasm-focused movies. And of course, they're some of my favorites. So I would say a lot of my humor comes from that as well.
Now, the reason why I think it would be nice for everyone to understand how to spot sarcasm or how to use it. It's because, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for a lot of people who like sarcasm, like for example, like yourself, when you judge someone, like not judge someone, when you, let's say, meet someone for the first time, like at work or as a friend, if you happen to catch a bit of a sarcasm from the other side, would you say, I'm going to connect with this person, or this is a friend for me?
In my case, yeah. Like, I like this person.
Yeah, right? 所以我也觉得在这种交朋友或者是这种建立 relationship 的时候，某一些人尤其是他对这种 sarcasm 他蛮会利用 sarcasm 的时候，他如果发现你也蛮接受或者你也会使用，他会突然间对你就蛮有兴趣的。I think this is something that I kind of found.
Well, I think it just depends on the person's personality. For example, sarcastic people tend to be a bit pessimistic or a bit skeptical.
对，然后会自己开自己玩笑, like self-deprecating humor.
When they see other people who are like way too optimistic, then that's just kind of like that's too much for me. But on the same side is like people who want to be more positive, more optimistic, they have a tendency to not enjoy being around people who are sarcastic because, again, they are usually more pessimistic. They're a little more skeptical of the world. And so that doesn't mean they can't be friends. It just means that, again, that first impression, if I find someone else who's a little bit sarcastic, it's usually because then now we can make jokes.
Yes.
Together. But if someone who was like very, very positive and optimistic met that same person, they would just be like, probably not someone I want to spend time with.
And I find that this is such a cultural thing. 在台湾这种讽刺 sarcasm 我觉得使用的方式跟我们用英文在西方国家使用方式是不太一样的。如果在台湾如果你用这种 sarcasm 很多人会觉得你很负面，你怎么会讲话这样那么负面那种感觉。 So it's a little bit different. That's my experience anyway. And I actually know a lot of friends 他们英文都很好，但是他们就完全无法使用 sarcasm. They don't want to and they don't like it, or they just incapable of using sarcasm.
Yeah, and sometimes, again, because it's a language or a culture thing, when you switch between languages, like, I'm not sarcastic in Chinese.
Yeah, that's true. You cannot.
Like, it just doesn't come across the same. But in English, I'm incredibly sarcastic.
No, I take that back. 你在讲中文的时候，你也会尝试的用 sarcasm.
有吗？
有。So, anyway, I do think that knowing how to spot sarcasm, I mean, 如果你不想使用 sarcasm, that's fine. But actually knowing that, 这个人他在开玩笑，这个人在用 sarcasm, 我觉得还蛮有用的，而且是在职场上面，我觉得当然了，因为你这样也不会有任何的比如说误会啊 or like misunderstanding. So I think it's really useful.
So let's dial back for a second and just sort of define what are the basic hallmarks of sarcasm. And also, if you want to use sarcasm and not make a lot of enemies, what you should do to avoid offending a lot of people.
Yeah.
So at its baseline, a lot of times sarcasm just gets used that you say the opposite of what you mean. So again, this can be really obvious. For example, when I say it's dripping with sarcasm, the tone, they should be like, oh, you look so good. The words and the tone are just so opposite that it's very obvious that it's sarcasm. But a lot of times, again, in the case of British humor or anyone who has dry wit, the words and the tone will sound like they're being legitimate. But if you pay attention to the context, you know that that's not actually what they mean.
Yeah.
We'll get into more examples of how to use sarcasm or the difference between these. But first, we also want to lay a few ground rules of if you want to use sarcasm and not offend everyone or drive away all your friends, what are a few things that you should do or not do?
So here are the 3 things we need to know, right? 尤其是在职场上面，我们要怎么样有效的利用 sarcasm? 第一个就是 use it only in a light situation. 这现在的这个气氛是非常轻松的，没有人生气的 No one's upset, no one's angry. Light situation only.
Anytime that you use sarcasm in the middle of an argument, it will not go well. There's
backfire.
like a 99% chance that that is going to be the thing that triggers the other person to punch you in the face. Now, if you're a sarcasm master like me, occasionally you might try and use it to diffuse anger. But most of the time, don't use sarcasm in an argument.
Yes, especially 如果你现在还是新手 if you're a newbie to sarcasm, use in a light situation. And also, number 2, you shouldn't sound too annoyed. 这个地方我们可能待会儿就用 sarcasm master 他会稍微讲一下这个 tone. 我们这种音调就变得有蛮重要的。
If you want to know what a very annoyed tone sounds like, if you've ever seen the Pixar movie Inside Out about someone's personality, they have like joy, sadness. There's actually a personality called disgust.
Oh, yeah.
And she's always annoyed. So that's like the tone you should not get because like everything she says is she's just annoyed by.
Now, number 3, this is interesting. You need to respond quickly. 就是我们这个 timing 就变得蛮重要的。那我知道 timing 其实对什么幽默啊、讲笑话啊，其实都是蛮重要的一环。所以 generally, if you want to be sarcastic and you want to play around with that, you need to respond as quickly as possible.
This is definitely something because sarcasm is usually tied to wit, and that someone's ability to just respond immediately is often what makes them sound witty or sarcastic as opposed to someone who's trying really hard. So you've probably always seen like in a movie or a TV show where someone has like a really good line and then the other person's like, well, you're, yeah, no, that's you, right? So people who tend to be very sarcastic can think on their feet very quickly. Same with someone who is very witty. I think actually a really good example of this is the Chinese version of stand-up comedy, where you often have like two people are always having that. That's usually considered like a strong wit. Yes. Whenever someone says something, the other person immediately turns it around on them. That's what makes it funny. That's what makes it effective. Sarcasm is the same thing. Like you cannot be sarcastic 5 seconds later. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's very true. Just keep in mind 一些比较基本的使用方式. So, but let's talk about the different style of sarcasm then.
The first kind of scenario where sarcasm shows up is often when what you say is the opposite of what you mean. And that can be very obvious. That can be not very obvious. For example, I do this all the time where Sherry is sitting down. She's clearly concentrating, working really hard, or maybe has a very serious face. And then I'll just come up and be like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun.
And sometimes, you know, when let's say outside it's raining, right? 我们现在台北常常在下雨，然后你就走进来办公室就说 Wow, it's such a great day outside.
Yeah. So this can be one of those things where the sarcasm can just be a statement of what's going on, or where you will often hear the sarcasm is, for example, if you just ask a really obvious question and you're just like, oh, how's it going? And you should be like, I'm having so much fun.
就是明明知道说你现在很忙，或者 you got like a lot of challenges, but I still ask, oh my God, how are you? Yeah, something that's really stupid and obvious question. And another situation is when someone did something wrong or make a small mistake, not a huge mistake, 小小的错误的时候，然后你就说 Great, thank you so much. Again, the tone is really important.
Yeah, so tone can be a thing there, or so for example, if someone like spills a drink or drops food on you, probably by accident, you can be like, oh, thank you for that gift. It's so wonderful. I really wanted that drink all over my shirt.
And if you did something stupid, make a mistake, right? 如果是自己的话，自己也可以对自己有这种 sarcasm joke, right? So let's say 我也是不小心打翻了东西，或者是我不小心写错了东西 and you just said to yourself, great, that's fantastic. That's another thing that you could be sarcastic about.
Yeah. Or for example, again, you spill a drink. You'd be like, no, that's exactly where I wanted that to be. Precisely what I was trying to do.
Yeah, 所以其实你会发现有蛮 standard 的一些 response. Like what we just said, it's something that often used. Like every single day, you may hear these type of sarcasm happening around you. So things like, good job, thanks for the help, or, oh, take your time. I like that one. Take your time. 如果你现在真的是非常的紧急，然后对方应该也知道这是很紧急的一件事情，但是他还是做事慢慢的。Take your time.
Yeah, this may sound a little gender biased, but literally anyone who's had a wife or a girlfriend probably knows that scenario where you're trying to leave the house and they're like, I need more time. Be like, yes. I mean, I wanted to leave 10 minutes ago, but really it's okay. You just take your time.
Wow, okay. It sounds like you use that a lot.
Now, okay, maybe it's not always gender. We have a term in English called dawdling. Dawdling is when someone just sort of wanders around and like takes their time to do something. My grandfather is famous for this. Like anytime you want to leave the house, you have to tell him about 10 minutes earlier than you actually want to leave the house, because he'll just sort of wander around the house and like straighten something up, or like he'll put his shoes on, but then he'll be like, oh, I got to get my jacket. And then he'll get distracted by something. And so we're just like, get in the car.
So I think other phrases like, oh, good luck with that, or that will be fun. Really? You are so smart. again, I think a lot of times you could really use your tone 这种语气跟语调就变成是又是另外一个蛮好玩的一个方式。
Yeah, so really in those scenarios, if someone's like, I need to go and break up with my girlfriend, you should be like, well, have fun with that.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes 如果对方 let's say they just don't get sarcasm 文化上面的差异啦，他可能觉得他真的当真以为你真的是 let's say 你真的要跟你女朋友 break up 了 but obviously you're being sarcastic. So what do you do in that kind of situation? How do you diffuse that?
So yeah, sometimes people will just look at you and be like, oh my God, really? And then you have to be like, I'm joking.
Yes, exactly.
Just kidding. I hope everything goes okay.
Yes,
Let
it's
me know
like
if you need
explaining
anything.
to Sheldon, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I was being sarcastic. Don't worry. Everything is fine.
Yeah. Like, are we really going to do that? No, we're not going to do that. It's just a joke. Well, I hope that you unsarcastically enjoyed this episode. If you want to know more about today's episode, sarcasm, or Tuesday's episode, how to talk to clueless people, let us know. We're testing out a few lighthearted, but things that are definitely practical in the office. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.